Hello, everyone. Welcome to English in Fluency. I am your host, Alex, and I am genuinely delighted to have you join me today for this special extended session. Whether you are listening to this in the early morning with a fresh cup of coffee, or perhaps you are listening on your commute to work, or maybe you are winding down in the evening before bed, I want you to know that I appreciate your time deeply. Time is the most valuable currency we have, and the fact that you are choosing to spend your time here, focusing on yourself and your English skills, is something you should be very proud of. Today, we have a very comprehensive journey planned for you. This is not just a quick lesson. This is a deep dive. We are going to spend a significant amount of time together because I want to talk about something that affects every single one of us. It is the silent enemy of progress. It is the thing that steals our dreams without us even noticing. I am talking about distraction. We live in a world that is designed to distract us. Every app on your phone, every website, every advertisement is fighting for your attention. It can feel like you are trying to walk through a storm while holding a candle. You are trying to protect the flame of your English learning, but the wind of distraction keeps trying to blow it out. But do not worry. Today, we are going to build a shelter for that flame. We are going to slow down. We are going to breathe. We are going to practice listening to a story about a man named Daniel, and through his journey, we will learn how to reclaim our focus. We will also do some focused speaking practice to train your mouth and your mind to work together. So, before we start the story, let's prepare our physical state. If you can, sit up straight. Relax your shoulders. Let go of the tension in your jaw. Take a deep breath in through your nose, count to 3, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Let's do that one more time. Breathe in deeply, feeling the air fill your lungs, and breathe out, letting go of all the stress from your day. You are here now. You are safe. You are ready to learn. Our story begins in a busy, noisy city, in a small apartment on the 4th floor of an old building. In this apartment lived a man named Daniel. Daniel was 30 years old, and he was a kind, hard-working man. He worked in a warehouse, moving boxes and organizing inventory. It was a tiring job. Every day, he came home with aching muscles and tired feet. But Daniel had a secret dream. He did not want to work in a warehouse forever. He wanted to become a hotel manager. He loved the idea of meeting people from all over the world, helping them have a wonderful vacation, and organizing big events. But to be a hotel manager in a big city, he needed one specific skill. He needed to speak English fluently. Daniel knew this. He had bought all the books. He had downloaded 3 different language learning apps on his phone. He had even subscribed to several YouTube channels, just like this one. Every night, before he went to sleep, he would make a promise to himself. He would look in the mirror while brushing his teeth and say, "Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow, I will wake up early. I will sit at my desk. And I will study for 1 hour before work. No excuses." The reflection in the mirror looked determined. The Daniel in the mirror looked like a man who was ready to change his life. But the morning version of Daniel was different. Let's look at a specific Tuesday morning. The alarm clock on his phone rang at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a loud, annoying sound. Daniel groaned and reached out his hand from under the warm blanket. He grabbed the phone to turn off the alarm. The room was quiet and slightly cold. It was the perfect time to study. But as soon as he turned off the alarm, he saw a little red dot on the screen. It was a notification from a social media app. His brain whispered to him, "Just check it. It will only take 1 minute. Just see what it is, and then you will get out of bed." Daniel listened to that voice. He unlocked his phone. The screen was bright, and the colors were vivid. He opened the app. It was a funny video of a cat jumping over a fence. Daniel smiled. He scrolled down. The next video was a clip from a movie. He watched it. Then he saw a news headline about a celebrity. He clicked on it to read the article. He was scrolling, clicking, and watching. He was in a trance. He did not feel the time passing. He did not feel the cold air in the room. He was lost in the digital world. Suddenly, another alarm went off. It was 7 o'clock. 1 hour had passed. The hour he promised to give to English was gone. Daniel sat up in bed, his heart beating fast with panic. He was going to be late for work. He threw the phone on the bed and ran to the shower. As the water hit his face, he felt a heavy feeling in his stomach. It was guilt. He thought, "I did it again. Why am I like this? I have no discipline. I will never learn English. I am just fooling myself." This negative self-talk is very dangerous. It drains your energy. By the time Daniel got to work, he was already mentally exhausted. He felt like a failure before the day had even started. This is the cycle of distraction. It is not just about wasting time. It is about wasting emotional energy. When you break a promise to yourself, you lose confidence. And when you lose confidence, speaking English becomes much harder because you are afraid of making mistakes. Let's pause the story right here for a moment. I want to address the emotion Daniel is feeling. Have you ever felt this guilt? Have you ever felt angry at yourself for wasting time? If you have, I want to tell you something very important. Forgive yourself. You cannot change the past. You cannot get that hour back. But you can change what happens now. Punishment does not help you learn. Kindness helps you learn. We are going to do our first speaking practice now. I want you to replace Daniel's negative thoughts with positive, powerful ones. I will say a sentence, and I want you to repeat it loud and clear. If you are in a public place, you can whisper it, but move your lips. Physical movement helps memory. Listen carefully. I forgive myself for my past mistakes. Now you say it. I forgive myself for my past mistakes. Good. Take a breath. Let's try another one. Today is a new opportunity to focus. Repeat after me. Today is a new opportunity to focus. Excellent. And one more. Very important one. I am in control of my attention. Your turn. I am in control of my attention. Very good. Remember these phrases. When you catch yourself scrolling on your phone, do not get angry. Just say, I am in control, and put the phone down. Now, let's go back to Daniel. A few weeks of this pattern continued. Wake up, scroll, feel guilty, rush to work, come home tired, sleep, repeat. Daniel was making zero progress. In fact, he felt like his English was getting worse because he wasn't practicing. He was stuck in what we call a rut. A rut is like a deep track in the mud that is hard to get out of. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel decided to escape his apartment. He couldn't stand looking at his dusty textbooks anymore. He went to a small park near the city center. It was a beautiful autumn day. The leaves on the trees were turning orange and brown. There was a gentle breeze blowing, Daniel sat on a wooden bench and watched people walking their dogs. He felt sad. He felt like giving up on his dream of being a hotel manager. Maybe I am just meant to work in the warehouse forever, he thought. Suddenly, an elderly woman sat down on the other end of the bench. She was wearing a thick wool coat and a colorful scarf. She had silver hair tied back in a bun, and her face was full of wrinkles that looked like happy lines. She was holding a very thick book. Daniel glanced at the book. It was written in French. The woman opened the book, took out a pencil, and started reading and underlining words. She would read a sentence, look up at the sky, move her lips silently, and then look back down. Daniel was fascinated. He watched her for 5 minutes. Finally, he couldn't resist. He spoke to her. "Excuse me," he said shyly. "Are you learning French?" The woman turned and smiled. Her eyes were bright and kind. "Oh, hello, young man," she said. "Yes, I am. I have been learning it for 6 months now. It is quite a challenge, but I love it." Daniel was surprised. This woman looked like she was in her 70s. "That is amazing," Daniel said. "I am trying to learn English, but, well, I am not very good at it. I can't seem to find the time." The woman laughed softly. She closed her book and placed it on her lap. "My name is Mrs. Higgins," she said, "and I will tell you a secret, young man. Nobody finds time. Time is not lost. You have to make time. And usually, the problem isn't time, it is focus." Daniel felt like she could read his mind. "My name is Daniel," he said, "and you are right. My problem is my phone. Every time I try to study, I get distracted. I start watching videos and then hours pass. I feel like I am fighting a losing battle." Mrs. Higgins nodded wisely. "Ah, the glowing rectangle," she said, pointing to Daniel's pocket where his phone was. "That little machine is designed to steal your soul, piece by piece. But you know, Daniel, distraction is usually a symptom, not the disease. We get distracted because we are avoiding something. We are avoiding the discomfort of learning. Learning is hard. It hurts the brain a little bit. So, when your brain feels that difficulty, it screams, 'Give me something easy. Give me a cat video.' And you obey." Daniel had never thought about it that way. He always thought he was just lazy. But Mrs. Higgins was saying he was avoiding discomfort. "So, what can I do?" Daniel asked. "How can I stop obeying?" Mrs. Higgins leaned in closer. "You have to embrace the boredom, Daniel. You have to sit with the difficulty. When I read this French book, I often feel stupid. I don't understand a sentence, and I feel frustrated. I want to close the book and go bake a cake. But I don't. I take a deep breath, and I stay. I stay with the frustration. And usually, after a few minutes, the frustration goes away and the learning begins. You need to build your tolerance for doing hard things." She then gave him a specific challenge. "Daniel, I want you to try something. Tomorrow morning, do not touch your phone until you have learned 3 new English words. Just 3. Not 10, not 20, just 3. But you must learn them deeply. Use them in sentences. Write them down. Make them yours. Can you promise me you will try that?" Daniel looked at Mrs. Higgins. She believed in him. He felt a spark of hope in his chest. "I promise," he said. "Just 3 words. No phone." Mrs. Higgins smiled and opened her book again. "Good. Now, let me get back to my French verbs. They are terrible, but I love them." Let's take a break from the narrative again to process what Mrs. Higgins said. This is a very deep concept. Embrace the boredom. In our modern life, we are never bored. If we wait for a bus, we check our phone. If we wait for a coffee, we check our phone. We have forgotten how to just be. But language learning happens in those quiet moments. It happens when you are struggling to find a word. If you interrupt that struggle with a distraction, you interrupt the learning process. We are going to practice some listening comprehension and vocabulary expansion here. Mrs. Higgins used the word symptom. A symptom is a sign that shows you have a problem or an illness. For example, a fever is a symptom of the flu. Mrs. Higgins said distraction is a symptom of avoiding difficulty. I want you to think about what you are avoiding. Are you avoiding a grammar rule you don't understand? Are you avoiding the fear of sounding silly? Let's practice speaking about this new mindset. I am going to give you longer sentences now. This will help your working memory. Working memory is the part of your brain that holds information for a short time. Expanding this helps you understand long sentences in English conversations. Listen to the whole sentence first, then repeat. Here is the first one. Distraction is just my brain trying to avoid hard work. Listen again. Distraction is just my brain trying to avoid hard work. Now, you say it. Distraction is just my brain trying to avoid hard work. Very good. Let's try a harder one. I am strong enough to handle the discomfort of learning. Listen once more. I am strong enough to handle the discomfort of learning. Now repeat. I am strong enough to handle the discomfort of learning. Wonderful. When you say, I am strong enough, feel your posture change. Sit taller. You are training your nervous system to be confident. Now, let's return to Daniel. He left the park feeling different. He didn't check his phone on the walk home. He looked at the buildings. He looked at the sky. He noticed that the cloud looked like a ship. He was practicing being present. Being present means your mind is in the same place as your body. Often, our body is in the room, but our mind is on the internet. Daniel was trying to bring his mind back to his body. That night, Daniel prepared differently. He took his phone and put it in a drawer in the kitchen. He did not leave it on his bedside table. He bought an old-fashioned alarm clock from a shop on his way home. A simple clock that just told the time and rang a bell. He put his English book on his desk. He opened it to page 42. He found a pen that worked well. He prepared the environment. This is another key lesson. Design your environment for success. If you want to eat healthy, don't buy cookies. If you want to study, hide the phone. He went to sleep feeling nervous, but ready. The next morning, the old alarm clock rang. Rang! It was a harsh sound, much louder than his phone. Daniel woke up with a jump. His hand reached out automatically for his phone, but it hit the wooden table. There was no phone. He remembered. Kitchen drawer, he mumbled. He remembered Mrs. Higgins. Just 3 words. He got out of bed. He did not check the news. He did not check his messages. He washed his face, made a cup of instant coffee, and sat at his desk. The apartment was silent. He looked at the book. It was hard. His brain started to itch. He really wanted to know if anyone had liked his photo from yesterday. The urge to check was like a physical itch on his arm. But he scratched his arm and said, "No, 3 words first." He looked at the page. The first word was persevere. He read the definition. Persevere. To continue trying to do something even though it is difficult. Daniel smiled. It was the perfect word for today. He wrote it down. Persevere. He said it out loud. Persevere. He wrote a sentence. I must persevere with my English studies. The second word was Obstacle. Obstacle. A thing that blocks one's way or prevents or hinders progress. He wrote it down. He thought about his phone. My phone is an obstacle. The third word was achievement. Achievement. A thing done successfully with effort, skill, or courage. He wrote it down. Learning these three words is a small achievement. He looked at the clock. Only 15 minutes had passed. He had done it. He had learned three words. He felt a strange sensation. It wasn't the high-energy excitement of a video game. It was a calm, warm feeling of satisfaction. It was a quiet joy. He realized that this feeling was better than the dopamine from the phone. This feeling was real. Daniel decided to do 5 more minutes. He read a short paragraph. He understood most of it. Because his brain wasn't jumping between apps, his concentration was deeper. He noticed the grammar. He noticed how the adjectives were used. When he finally stood up from the desk, he felt lighter. He went to the kitchen, opened the drawer, and took out his phone. He had 10 messages. He looked at them. They didn't seem as important anymore. He had already won the morning. This was the beginning of Daniel's transformation. But be careful. Do not think that everything was perfect after that. Change is not a straight line. Change is messy. 2 days later, Daniel had a bad day at work. His boss yelled at him for dropping a box. Daniel came home angry and tired. He didn't want to study. He wanted to escape. He went straight to the couch, turned on the TV, ordered a pizza, and spent 4 hours watching a show he didn't even like. He woke up the next morning feeling terrible. The guilt was back. He thought, "See? Mrs. Higgins was wrong. I can't do this. I failed." He walked to work with his head down. But as he passed the park, he looked at the bench. Mrs. Higgins wasn't there, but the memory of her voice was. "Persevere," she had said. Or rather, the book had said it. To continue trying even though it is difficult. Daniel realized that failing one day did not mean he had to fail forever. If you trip and fall while walking, you don't lie on the ground for the rest of your life. You get up, you brush off the dirt, and you keep walking. The all-or-nothing mindset is a trap. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent over the long term. So, that evening, Daniel went back to the basics. He didn't try to study for 4 hours to make up for the lost time. He just did his 3 words. He reset the system. This resilience, the ability to bounce back after a failure, is the most important skill you can have. As the months went by, Daniel continued his 3-word morning. Slowly, 3 words became 5 words. Then 5 words became reading 1 page. Then reading 1 page became listening to a podcast for 10 minutes. He built the habit slowly, brick by brick. He didn't rush. He stopped comparing himself to the people on the internet who claimed to learn a language in 3 months. He knew his journey was his own. One day, an opportunity appeared. A new luxury hotel was opening in the city center. They were looking for a junior front desk manager. The advertisement said, "Must have excellent organizational skills and intermediate English." Daniel stared at the ad. His heart raced. Intermediate English. Did he have intermediate English? He wasn't sure. He felt like a beginner. But he remembered Mrs. Higgins. He remembered the word achievement. He decided to apply. He wrote his CV. He practiced his interview answers in front of the mirror. He recorded himself on his phone, not to scroll, but to listen to his own pronunciation. The day of the interview arrived. Daniel put on his best suit. He was nervous. His hands were shaking. He arrived at the hotel. It was beautiful. There were crystal chandeliers and marble floors. He felt small. He felt like the warehouse worker who didn't belong there. He sat in the waiting room. There were other candidates. They looked confident. One of them was speaking loudly on his phone in English. Daniel felt the old fear returning. "I am not good enough," he thought. But then he closed his eyes. He visualized his kitchen drawer where his phone was sleeping. He visualized the park bench. He took a deep breath. He whispered to himself, "I have persevered. I have overcome obstacles. I am ready." The interviewer called his name. "Daniel?" Daniel stood up. He walked into the room. The interviewer was a serious-looking woman with glasses. She looked at his CV. "So, Daniel," she said in English, "tell me about yourself." Daniel took a breath. He didn't try to use complex words he didn't know. He spoke simply. He spoke clearly. He told her about his current job. He told her about his discipline. He told her about Mrs. Higgins. He said, "I may not speak perfect English yet, but I study every single day. I am disciplined, and I love to learn." The interviewer stopped looking at her papers. She looked at Daniel. She saw something in his eyes. She saw focus. She saw someone who wasn't distracted. In a world where everyone is distracted, a focused person is very rare and very valuable. She smiled. "Your English is very clear, Daniel. But more importantly, I like your attitude. Skills can be taught. Attitude cannot." Daniel didn't get the job of manager immediately. He got a job as a receptionist. But it was his foot in the door. It was the beginning. He had escaped the warehouse. He was in the environment he wanted. And he knew that with his new habits, he would eventually become the manager. But as we are about to find out, getting the job is only the first step. Keeping the job and thriving in it is a completely different challenge. This is where the real English journey begins. It is one thing to learn English in a quiet room with a book. It is another thing entirely to use English when phones are ringing, people are waiting, and the pressure is on. It was his first Monday morning at the Grandview Hotel. The lobby was nothing like the warehouse. The warehouse smelled of cardboard and dust. The hotel lobby smelled of fresh lilies and expensive coffee. The floor was polished marble that clicked when people walked on it in their high heels and leather shoes. Daniel stood behind the long mahogany reception desk. He was wearing his new uniform, a crisp white shirt, a dark blue tie, and a name tag that said, "Daniel, Receptionist." He looked professional on the outside, but inside he was terrified. He felt a sensation that many of us feel when we start something new. It is called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the feeling that you are a fake, that you don't belong, and that everyone is going to discover that you are not good enough. Daniel looked at his colleague, Julian. Julian was the senior receptionist. He was tall, elegant, and he spoke English with a speed and fluency that made Daniel's head spin. Julian could type on the computer, talk to a guest, and answer the phone all at the same time. Suddenly, the phone on the desk rang. It was a sharp, loud sound. Julian was busy with a guest, so he signaled to Daniel. "Pick it up, Daniel," Julian whispered urgently. Daniel's hand shook as he reached for the receiver. He took a deep breath. He remembered his textbook phrase. "Good morning, Grandview Hotel. Daniel speaking. How may I help you?" He said it perfectly. But then, the voice on the other end spoke. It was a man, and he was speaking incredibly fast. Yeah, hi. I need to speak to reservations regarding a booking for next Tuesday. Name's Miller. I need to change the twin room to a double because my wife is coming and we need an early check-in. Is that doable? Daniel froze. The words came at him like a machine gun. Change. Wife. Doable. He caught only pieces. His brain panicked. The silence on the line grew awkward. Hello? Are you there? The man asked, sounding annoyed. Daniel felt the heat rise to his face. He stammered, yes. Wait, please. Julian noticed. He reached over, took the phone from Daniel's hand, and smiled continuously. Good morning, Mr. Miller. My apologies. My colleague is new. Let me handle that for you. Julian resolved the issue in 30 seconds. He hung up and looked at Daniel. He didn't look angry, but he looked disappointed. Daniel, he said, you have to listen faster. Guests don't have time to wait for you to translate in your head. This moment hurts. I know many of you listening have felt this. You study hard, you know the grammar, but when a native speaker talks at full speed, it feels like a different language. This is because real English is not like textbook English. In textbooks, every word is separated. In real life, words are glued together. We call this connected speech. Is that doable? Sounds like zat double? Let's practice this right now. We need to train your ear not for words, but for chunks of sound. I want to prepare you for the reality Daniel is facing. I am going to say a sentence in textbook English, and then in real English. I want you to repeat the real English version. Textbook. What are you going to do? Real. What you're gonna do? Repeat it. What you're gonna do? Textbook. Did you have a good time? Real. Did you have a good time? Repeat it. Did you have a good time? Textbook. I have got to go. Real. I gotta go. Repeat it. I gotta go. Excellent. Daniel didn't know this yet. He went to his lunch break feeling defeated. He sat in the employee break room staring at his sandwich. The old urge came back. He wanted to take out his phone and scroll through social media to numb the pain of embarrassment. He wanted to forget the morning. His hand went to his pocket. But then he thought of the warehouse. He thought of the heavy boxes. Did he want to go back there? No. He had to fight for this. He decided he needed a new strategy. The 3 words a day method was great for vocabulary, but it wasn't enough for fluency. He needed speed. He needed rhythm. He remembered a video he had watched once about a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is a very powerful technique. It involves listening to a piece of audio and repeating it exactly as you hear it, almost at the same time, with only a tiny delay. You don't just repeat the words, you repeat the emotion, the pauses, and the melody. You become a copycat. Daniel decided to use his lunch break not to hide, but to train. He put on his headphones. He found a podcast of people having natural conversations. He went to a quiet corner of the break room. He started the audio. A woman said, "I can't believe it's raining again." Daniel whispered, "I can't believe it's raining again." He tried to match her speed. He tried to match her tone. At first, he stumbled. His tongue felt heavy, but he kept going for 10 minutes. By the end of the 10 minutes, his mouth felt more awake. He realized that speaking is a physical act. It is a sport. You have to train the muscles of your mouth to move in new ways. Let's try a mini shadowing session together. I am going to say a sentence with strong emotion. I want you to mimic me exactly. Don't just say the words. Act them out. Imagine you are polite, but firm. Listen, I understand the problem, and I will solve it for you. Now you, copy my melody. I understand the problem, and I will solve it for you. Now imagine you are excited. Listen, that is absolutely wonderful news. Your turn. That is absolutely wonderful news. Now imagine you are apologizing sincerely. Listen, I am so terribly sorry for the inconvenience. Go ahead. I am so terribly sorry for the inconvenience. Daniel returned to the front desk after lunch. He felt a little sharper. The afternoon was busy. Guests were checking in. Daniel watched Julian closely. Instead of feeling jealous of Julian's fluency, he decided to shadow Julian in his head. Every time Julian said a phrase, Daniel repeated it silently in his mind. Julian said, "Here is your key card. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10. Daniel thought, "Here is your key card. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10. Julian said, "The elevators are just to your right." Daniel thought, "The elevators are just to your right." By doing this, Daniel was turning his work environment into a classroom. This is a vital lesson for you. You do not need to be in a school to learn. The world is your school. If you watch a movie, shadow the actors. If you listen to a song, shadow the singer. Active listening is better than passive listening. A few days passed. Daniel was surviving. He was making fewer mistakes. But then came the ultimate test. It was Friday evening. The hotel was fully booked. The lobby was crowded with people with suitcases. Julian had to step away to the manager's office for a moment, leaving Daniel alone at the desk. The automatic doors opened, and a man walked in. He looked tired and angry. He was wearing a wet raincoat, and he was dragging a heavy suitcase. He marched straight to the desk. This was Mr. Henderson. "Name is Henderson," he barked. "I booked a suite with a view of the park, and I want it now. I've had a terrible flight." Daniel typed the name into the computer. His heart sank. There was a mistake in the system. The computer showed that Mr. Henderson had booked a standard room, not a suite, and the hotel was full. There were no suites available. Daniel felt the panic rising again. He looked around for Julian. Julian was gone. He was alone. The imposter syndrome screamed in his ear, "Run away! You can't handle this. You don't have the words." Mr. Henderson tapped his credit card on the desk. "Well, what's the holdup?" Daniel took a deep breath. He remembered Mrs. Higgins. Embrace the boredom. Or in this case, embrace the pressure. He realized that checking his phone or running away wouldn't solve this. He had to be present. He had to focus on the human being in front of him. He looked Mr. Henderson in the eye. He didn't look at the computer screen. He looked at the man. "Mr. Henderson," Daniel said slowly and clearly, "I can see that you have had a very long journey, and you are tired." The man stopped tapping his card. He looked surprised. Yes, I am. "I am looking at your reservation," Daniel continued, keeping his voice calm. "And I see that we have you down for a standard room. However, I understand that you wanted a suite." "I paid for a suite," the man shouted. "I understand," Daniel said. He used the phrase he had practiced in the break room. "I am so terribly sorry for the inconvenience. Let me see what we can do." Daniel didn't have a suite, but he had his focus. He thought creatively. He looked at the system. He saw that a standard room on the top floor was available. It wasn't a suite, but it had a balcony and a beautiful view. And he could offer something else. "Mr. Henderson," Daniel said, "I am afraid all our suites are occupied tonight. There seems to be an error in the booking system. However, I can give you a deluxe room on the top floor with a private balcony. And, because of the mistake, I would like to offer you a complimentary dinner in our restaurant tonight. The food is excellent." Daniel spoke the English words carefully. He didn't rush. He didn't mumble. He focused on communicating a solution. Mr. Henderson sighed. He looked at Daniel. He saw a young man who was trying his best. The anger left his face. "Dinner included?" "Yes, sir. And breakfast tomorrow," Daniel added with a small smile. "Fine," Mr. Henderson said. "That will do. Just give me the key." Daniel handed over the key card. "The elevators are just to your right. Enjoy your dinner, sir." Mr. Henderson walked away. Daniel let out a long breath he had been holding. His hands were sweating. Just then, Julian returned. "Everything okay?" Julian asked, seeing Daniel's pale face. "Yes," Daniel said. "I think so. I just handled a problem." Julian looked at the computer. He saw the upgrade and the free dinner. He looked at Daniel with a new expression. It was respect. "Good job, Daniel. You kept your cool. That is the most important part of this job. English is just a tool. Composure is the skill." That night, Daniel walked home. He was exhausted. But it was a different kind of exhaustion than the warehouse. It was a good tired. He felt like he had grown an inch taller. He didn't check his phone on the walk home. He replayed the conversation with Mr. Henderson in his mind. He analyzed his grammar. He realized he had made a few small mistakes, but he had communicated. He had connected. When he got to his apartment, he sat at his desk. He took out his notebook. He wrote down a new word for the day. Negotiation. Negotiation. Discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. He realized that fluency isn't just about knowing all the words in the dictionary. Fluency is about handling situations. It is about not freezing when things go wrong. It is about using the little English you have to solve big problems. Now, I want to talk to you, the listener. Think about a time you froze. Think about a time you were afraid to speak because you didn't want to make a mistake. Daniel's story shows us that mistakes are inevitable. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be effective. Let's do a visualization exercise to build your confidence for these high-pressure moments. Close your eyes if you can. Imagine you are in a situation where you need to speak English. Maybe it is an interview, or asking for directions, or ordering food. Imagine that you don't know the exact word you need. Feel that small panic. Now, imagine yourself taking a deep breath. Imagine yourself smiling. Imagine yourself describing the word you don't know. For example, if you forget the word for umbrella, you say, "The thing that protects me from rain." Imagine the other person understanding you. Imagine the connection. Open your eyes. This ability to work around obstacles is called circumlocution. It is a fancy word, but it just means talking around. It is a vital skill for B1 learners. You don't need to know every word if you can describe every word. Let's practice this. I am going to give you a word, and I want you to describe it without saying the word. The word is refrigerator. How would you describe it? You could say, the machine in the kitchen that keeps food cold. Try it. Say it out loud. The machine in the kitchen that keeps food cold. Let's try another one. The word is airport. You could say, the place where planes take off and land. Your turn. The place where planes take off and land. One more. The word is teacher. You could say, a person who helps students learn new things. Say it. A person who helps students learn new things. Excellent. If you can do this, you can survive any conversation. You never need to be silent. You can always explain. As Daniel continued to grow, he faced new challenges. The most difficult one was not an angry guest, but a new colleague. Her name was Sarah. Sarah was energetic, had a bright smile, and spoke English with a perfect, natural flow. She had lived in California as a teenager. When Daniel heard her speak, he felt small. He felt the comparison trap snapping shut around him again. He thought, she is so natural. I am just a student. He almost gave up. He almost went back to his phone to hide from his feelings. But Julian, the senior receptionist, gave him a reality check. Julian pointed out that while Sarah was great at speaking, her writing was messy and her grammar was weak. Daniel, on the other hand, was precise, professional, and excellent at writing. They realized they had complementary skills. Daniel helped Sarah with formal emails, and Sarah helped Daniel with slang and natural expressions. They became a team. They learned that there is no one way to be fluent. There are many ways to be valuable. And then came the storm. A massive power outage hit the city. The hotel went dark. The computers died. Panic started to spread in the lobby. Sarah, who relied on the computers, froze. But Daniel, who was used to the physical reality of the warehouse, sprang into action. He grabbed a flashlight. He stood on a chair. He used his voice, loud, clear, and calm, to direct the crowd. He wasn't thinking about grammar. He was thinking about leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are taking care of you. In that moment, the guests didn't care about his accent. They cared about his confidence. Mr. Stevens, the general manager, saw this. He saw Daniel's ability to lead when things were hard. A few weeks after the blackout, Mr. Stevens called Daniel into his office. The office was large, with a view of the city skyline. Daniel sat down, feeling nervous but ready. Mr. Stevens smiled. "Daniel," he said, "I remember when you started here. You were quiet. You were nervous. But during the blackout, I saw a manager. I didn't just see a receptionist." Daniel smiled, thinking back to the warehouse days, the early mornings with the alarm clock, and Mrs. Higgins on the park bench. "I have learned a lot, sir," Daniel said. "I have learned that English is important, but focus and resilience are even more important." Mr. Stevens nodded. "Exactly. That is why I want to offer you the position of guest relations manager. We need someone who can solve problems, not just someone who speaks quickly." Daniel felt a rush of emotion. He accepted the job. He shook Mr. Stevens's hand. As he walked out of the office, he took his phone out of his pocket. He looked at it. For a long time, this device had been his master. It had controlled his attention, but now it was just a tool. He was the master. He sent a quick text to his mother. "I got the job." Then he put the phone away and looked up at the lobby. He saw Sarah smiling at him. He saw the guests. He saw his future. And he knew, deep down, that the journey was never really about English. It was about becoming the person who was capable of learning English. It was about becoming the person who could stay focused in a distracted world. Let's rejoin Daniel 6 months after his promotion. The honeymoon period was over. The excitement of the new title had faded, and the reality of the workload had set in. Daniel was working 12 hours a day. He was managing a team of 5 receptionists, including Sarah and Julian. He was responsible for VIP guests, complaints, scheduling, and training. His English was good. He was using it every single day. But something was wrong. He had stopped studying. In the warehouse, he had the 3 words-a-day habit. But now, as a manager, he told himself, I don't have time for that anymore. I am speaking English all day. That is enough. But using English for work is not the same as studying English for growth. He was saying the same phrases over and over again. I apologize for the delay. Let me check that for you. Welcome to the Grandview. His vocabulary was stuck. He wasn't learning new things. He was just recycling old things. One rainy Tuesday evening, Daniel was sitting in his office. He was staring at a complex spreadsheet. His head was throbbing. He felt empty. He looked at the bookshelf in his office where he kept his old English textbooks. They were covered in a thin layer of dust. He realized he hadn't opened a book in 4 months. He felt a sudden wave of sadness. He missed the joy of learning. He missed the spark he used to feel when he learned a new idiom. Now, English just felt like work. It felt like a heavy tool he had to carry, not a key to a magical door. This is a critical moment that almost every B2/C1 learner faces. You get good enough to do your job, and you stop climbing. You settle on a plateau. And because you stop climbing, you start to slide back down. Daniel noticed he was making small mistakes again. He was forgetting prepositions. He was struggling to find the right words in meetings. He felt his confidence slipping. Not because he wasn't capable, but because he was exhausted. Let's pause the story to address burnout. Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet constant demands. For language learners, burnout makes the language feel like an enemy. I want us to practice some vocabulary related to mental health and work-life balance. These are essential concepts for the modern workplace. First, let's look at the phrasal verb to burn out. Example: if you work 7 days a week, you will burn out. Let's practice speaking this. Repeat after me. It is important to rest so I do not burn out. Say it again with feeling. It is important to rest so I do not burn out. Next, let's look at to wind down. This means to relax after doing something tiring. Example: I like to read a book to wind down after work. Your turn. I need to find a way to wind down in the evenings. Repeat. I need to find a way to wind down in the evenings. And finally, to recharge my batteries. This is a metaphor for resting to get energy back. Example: I am taking the weekend off to recharge my batteries. Try it. I am taking the weekend off to recharge my batteries. Daniel didn't know how to recharge. He just kept pushing. And then, the inevitable happened. He made a big mistake. Not a grammar mistake, but a communication mistake caused by fatigue. He sent an email to a very important supplier. He meant to write, "We accept your proposal for the catering contract." But because he was tired and rushing, and because his phone distracted him with a notification midway through typing, he wrote, "We accept your proposal." Accept means to say yes. Accept means to exclude. The supplier was confused. They thought Daniel was rejecting them. They canceled the order. 2 days later, the hotel had a major event and no food. It was a disaster. Mr. Stevens, the general manager, had to step in and fix it. He called Daniel into his office. Daniel expected to be fired. He sat in the chair, head in his hands. "I am so sorry," Daniel said. I am just, I am so tired. Mr. Stevens looked at him. He didn't yell. He asked a question. Daniel, when was the last time you took a vacation? Daniel blinked. Vacation? I haven't taken a vacation since I started. I wanted to prove I am a hard worker. You have proved it, Mr. Stevens said. But a car cannot run without fuel. You are running on fumes. And when you run on fumes, the engine breaks. I am ordering you to take 1 week off, starting tomorrow. Go somewhere. Do not think about the hotel. Do not check your emails. Just be. Daniel left the office in shock. A whole week? What would he do? He walked home. He felt lost. But as he passed the park, he saw the bench, the empty bench where he used to meet Mrs. Higgins. He sat down. He breathed in the cool air. He realized he had forgotten the most important lesson Mrs. Higgins taught him. Focus isn't just about working. It is about being present. He wasn't present at work anymore. He was just a robot. He decided to do something brave. He decided to travel. He had been saving money. He had always dreamed of visiting London. He had watched so many videos about it. He had shadowed so many British podcasts. Why not go? Why not test his English in the real world? He booked a flight for the next morning. It was impulsive, but he needed a shock to his system. The flight was long. Daniel felt anxious. What if I don't understand them? He thought. The British accent is different from the international English we speak at the hotel. He landed at Heathrow Airport. The noise hit him first. Thousands of people rushing, announcements blaring over the speakers, the clatter of luggage. He walked to the immigration officer. The officer was a stern-looking man. "Reason for your visit?" he asked. Daniel froze for a second. The accent was fast and mumbled. It wasn't clear like on the apps. Tourism," Daniel said. "I am here for a holiday." "How long are you staying?" 1 week. "Right. Off you go then." "Off you go then." Daniel smiled. He understood it. He walked out into the arrival hall. He took the underground train into the city. He sat quietly, listening to the conversations around him. 2 teenagers were arguing about a video game. A businessman was talking loudly on his phone about Q4 projections. A mother was singing to her baby. It was a symphony of English. And for the first time in months, Daniel felt the spark return. He wasn't the manager here. He was just a learner again. He was a student of the world. This brings us to a very important concept: the beginner's mind. In Zen Buddhism, they say, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few. Daniel had become an expert at the hotel, and his world had become small. In London, he was a beginner, and his world was big again. I want you to cultivate this beginner's mind. Even if you are advanced, look at English with fresh eyes. Be curious. Let's practice some travel English scenarios that Daniel faced, focusing on natural, polite expressions used in the UK. Scenario 1. Asking for help when lost. Direct. Where is the train station? Polite, native. Excuse me, could you point me in the right direction for the station? Let's try the polite version. It is longer, but it is much softer. Excuse me, could you point me in the right direction for the station? Repeat. Excuse me, could you point me in the right direction for the station? Scenario 2. Ordering food in a busy pub. Direct. I want a burger. Polite to native. Could I grab the burger, please? Or, I'll have the burger, please. Let's try, could I grab? It is very casual and common. Could I grab the burger, please? Repeat. Could I grab the burger, please? Daniel spent his week walking. He walked through Hyde Park. He visited the museums. He didn't use a translation app. If he didn't know a word, he asked someone. One afternoon, he went into a small bookshop. He found a copy of a novel he had read in his own language years ago. He bought the English version. He went to a coffee shop, ordered a flat white, a new word he learned, turned off his phone, and read. He read for 3 hours. He didn't understand every word. He didn't stop to look them up. He just let the story flow over him. He realized that reading for pleasure was the missing ingredient. At the hotel, he only read for information. Reading for pleasure reconnects you with the soul of the language. When Daniel flew back home at the end of the week, he looked different. He looked rested. His shoulders were lower. He had a new energy. He returned to the hotel on Monday morning. Mr. Stevens saw him. "You look alive," Mr. Stevens said. "I am," Daniel replied. "I really am." Daniel changed his management style. He stopped checking his emails every 5 minutes. He introduced focus hours for his team, periods of time where they were allowed to work on one task without interruption. He encouraged Sarah and Julian to take their breaks away from their desks. But the biggest change happened a month later. The hotel hired a new porter. His name was Leo. Leo was 19 years old. He was skinny, shy, and he looked terrified. He was from a rural village, and his English was very broken. Daniel watched Leo from across the lobby. He saw Leo struggling to understand a guest. He saw the panic in Leo's eyes. He saw Leo retreating to the corner to look at his phone, hiding in the safety of the screen. It was like looking in a mirror. It was Daniel from 3 years ago. Daniel walked over to Leo. Leo jumped, looking scared. "I am sorry, boss. I was just—" "It's okay," Daniel said gently. "Put the phone away, Leo." Leo put it in his pocket. "My English, it is not good," Leo whispered. "I think I cannot do this job. The guests speak too fast." Daniel smiled. He remembered Julian telling him to listen faster. He remembered Mrs. Higgins telling him to embrace the boredom. He remembered Mr. Tanaka telling him to be present. "Leo," Daniel said, "come with me." He took Leo to the break room. He made him a cup of coffee. "Do you want to get better?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Leo said. "But I don't have time, and I get distracted." Daniel reached into his bag. He pulled out a notebook. It wasn't his old one. It was a brand new one. He took a pen and wrote 3 words on the first page. 1. Focus. 2. Patience. 3. Resilience. He slid the notebook to Leo. "I am going to teach you a secret," Daniel said. "It is called the 3 words a day method. And I am going to challenge you. Tomorrow morning, do not touch your phone until you learn 3 words. Can you promise me that?" Leo looked at the notebook. He looked at Daniel. He saw a successful manager, a confident man who spoke fluent English. He didn't know about the warehouse. He didn't know about the tears and the struggle. He just saw the result. "I promise," Leo said. And in that moment, the circle was complete. Daniel was no longer just a learner. He was a teacher. And as we know, the best way to learn is to teach. By helping Leo, Daniel recommitted to his own journey. He started studying again, not because he had to, but because he wanted to lead by example. 5 years had passed since Daniel became the guest relations manager. The Grandview Hotel had changed, and so had Daniel. He was no longer the nervous young man checking his grammar. He was now the general manager of the entire hotel. He wore a tailored suit. He walked with a calm, quiet authority. He didn't just speak English. He thought in English, he dreamt in English, and he joked in English. However, with this new position came a new terror. A terror much worse than answering a phone or handling a complaint. Every year, the Grandview Hotel hosted a summit for its international investors. These were the people who owned the company. They were billionaires, business tycoons, and critical thinkers. And as the general manager, Daniel had to give a 30-minute presentation on the stage, in English, to explain the hotel's strategy for the next 5 years. Daniel sat in his large office. The view of the city was breathtaking, but he barely noticed it. He was staring at his speech on his laptop. His hands were sweating. Speaking one-on-one was easy for him now. He could chat with anyone. But public speaking? That was a different beast. Public speaking is not just about information. It is about performance. It is about holding the attention of 200 people at the same time. He practiced his speech in front of the mirror. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our revenue has increased by 10%. He stopped. It sounded boring. It sounded flat. He sounded like a robot again. He felt the old ghost of insecurity returning. Who am I to speak to these powerful people? I am just a guy from the warehouse. He decided he needed help. He didn't go to a grammar teacher this time. He went to a voice coach. Her name was Victoria. She was a retired actress who taught executives how to speak with power. Daniel met her in a studio that smelled of old wood and tea. "Victoria," Daniel said, "my English is correct, but my speech is boring. I am losing them before I even start." Victoria looked at him. "Daniel, you are focusing on the content. You need to focus on the delivery. English is a stress-timed language. The music of the language comes from the rhythm. You are speaking like a typewriter. Tat, 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 tat. You need to speak like a cello. You need to use silence." "Silence?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Victoria said. "The most powerful tool in English is the pause. When you pause, you force the audience to lean in. You create suspense. And you need to use rhetorical devices. Do you know the rule of 3? Daniel shook his head. "No. The human brain likes things in 3s, Victoria explained. It feels complete. Blood, sweat, and tears. Mind, body, and spirit. If you want to be persuasive, list your points in 3s. Let's step out of the story and practice these advanced techniques right now. This is C2 level work. This is how you sound like a leader. Technique 1. The power of the pause. I want you to say this sentence without pausing. We need to change our strategy because the market is evolving and we want to stay ahead. It sounds rushed, right? Now, I want you to say it with pauses at the slashes. How? We need to change our strategy because the market is evolving and we want to stay ahead. Do you hear the difference? The pauses give weight to the words. Try it. We need to change our strategy because the market is evolving and we want to stay ahead. Technique 2. The rule of 3. I want you to describe your goal using 3 adjectives. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, say, I want to be fluent, confident, and powerful. Repeat that. I want to be fluent, confident, and powerful. Let's try a business example. Our product is fast, reliable, and affordable. Your turn. Our product is fast, reliable, and affordable. Daniel spent the next 2 weeks rewriting his speech. He wasn't just checking for grammar errors. He was choreographing the rhythm. He marked the pauses in red ink. He grouped his ideas into 3s. He practiced stressing the important words. Instead of saying, Our profits are up. He practiced saying, our profits are up. The day of the investor summit arrived. The ballroom was packed. The lights were bright. Daniel stood backstage. His heart was hammering against his ribs, just like the alarm clock on that first morning years ago. But this time, he didn't try to run away. He didn't look for a distraction. He closed his eyes. He visualized the warehouse. He visualized the park bench. He visualized Mr. Tanaka. He visualized Leo. He took all those memories and turned them into fuel. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the general manager, Daniel," the announcer said. Daniel walked out. The applause was polite. He stood at the podium. He waited. He didn't start speaking immediately. He looked at the audience. He made eye contact with a man in the front row. He waited for 3 seconds of silence. The room went quiet. They were waiting for him. "5 years ago," Daniel began, his voice deep and resonant, "I was moving boxes in a dusty warehouse. Today, I am moving this company into the future." The audience went deadly silent. They were hooked. A story. Everyone loves a story. Daniel continued. He didn't just read the slides. He told the story of the hotel. "We faced a crisis," he said. "The blackout, the panic, the fear. Rule of 3. But we didn't just survive," he said, raising his voice slightly. "We adapted. We innovated. We thrived. Rule of 3. He spoke about the staff. He spoke about the culture of learning he had built. "We don't just hire employees," Daniel said. "We build leaders." When he finished his 30-minute speech, he didn't just say, "Thank you." He used a final rhetorical technique called the call to action. "So, I ask you today," Daniel said, looking at the investors, "do not just invest in our building. Invest in our people. Because buildings crumble, but people grow." He held the final silence. The applause was not polite this time. It was thunderous. People were standing up. Daniel smiled. He wasn't smiling because of the applause. He was smiling because he knew he had truly mastered the medium. He had turned the English language from a terrifying obstacle into a beautiful instrument. After the speech, the investors crowded around him. They didn't ask about the numbers. They asked about him. "Your English is incredible," one American investor said. "Where did you study? Harvard? Oxford?" Daniel laughed. A genuine, warm laugh. "No, sir," he said. "I studied at the University of the Park Bench. My professor was a 70-year-old woman named Mrs. Higgins." Speaking of Mrs. Higgins, let's wrap up our story with a final, emotional reunion. A few months after the speech, Daniel was walking through the lobby. He saw an old woman sitting in the cafe area. She was very frail now, using a cane, but she was holding a book, a French book. It was Mrs. Higgins. She had come to the hotel for high tea. Daniel walked over to her. His heart was full. "Mrs. Higgins?" he asked softly. She looked up. Her eyes were still bright, though her vision was fading. "Yes? Do I know you, young man?" "It's me," Daniel said. "Daniel, from the park bench, the 3-words-a-day boy." Her face lit up with recognition. "Daniel! Oh my goodness! Look at you! You are wearing a suit that costs more than my car. You look focused." Daniel sat down with her. He ordered the best tea in the house. He told her everything. He told her about the job, the blackout, the speech, and Leo. "You were right," Daniel said. "The distraction was just a symptom. I was afraid of the hard work, but I learned to embrace the boredom." Mrs. Higgins smiled and patted his hand. "We never really finish learning, Daniel. I am 80 years old, and I am still struggling with these French verbs. But that is the beauty of it. The struggle keeps us young. The focus keeps us alive. Daniel nodded. He looked around his hotel. He saw Leo at the front desk, confidently checking in a guest. He saw Sarah training a new recruit. He saw a world of communication that he had helped create. "I have a new goal," Daniel told her. "Oh?" she asked. "What is it?" "I am starting a program," Daniel said. "Every Saturday, I open the conference room. Any staff member, cleaners, cooks, porters, can come for free English lessons. I teach them. We turn off our phones. We focus. I want to give them the key that you gave me." Mrs. Higgins closed her book. "Then my work here is done," she whispered. "That is the greatest success, Daniel. Not what you achieve, but what you pass on." This brings us to the very end of our time together. Daniel's story is finished, but yours is still being written. You are currently in a specific chapter of your life. Maybe you are in the warehouse chapter, feeling stuck and tired. Maybe you are in the park bench chapter, needing a mentor. Maybe you are in the burnout chapter, needing rest. Or maybe you are ready for your master class chapter. Wherever you are, I want you to remember the core pillars of this 10,000-word journey. 1. Eliminate distractions. You cannot learn if your mind is in two places at once. Put the phone away. 2. Small steps. 3 words a day is better than 0 words a day. Consistency beats intensity. 3. Embrace discomfort. The moment you feel bored or frustrated is the moment learning happens. Do not run from it. 4. Community. Find a study buddy like Sarah. Find a mentor like Mrs. Higgins. Teach a student like Leo. We learn better together. 5. Rest. You are a human being, not a machine. Protect your energy so you do not burn out. 6. Purpose. Know your why. Daniel wanted to leave the warehouse. What do you want? I want to do one final massive visualization with you. A visualization to seal this entire experience into your subconscious mind. I want you to close your eyes. Imagine a version of yourself 5 years from now. Look at this person. How do they stand? They stand tall. How do they speak? They speak with rhythm, with pauses, with confidence. They are not afraid of mistakes. They are not addicted to their phone. They are a master of their attention. Now, imagine that future version of you handing you a key. This key represents your potential. Take the key. Put it in your pocket. Open your eyes. You have the key. You have always had the key. The only thing standing between you and that future version is the daily decision to focus. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to this entire series. It takes a special kind of person to commit to this level of practice. You are that person. If this story helped you, if Daniel's journey resonated with you, please do one thing for me. Share this channel with one person who needs it. Be a Mrs. Higgins for someone else. Help us spread the message of focus in a distracted world. And of course, subscribe to English in Fluency. We will continue to bring you stories, practice sessions, and motivation. But for now, the lesson is over. The real work begins. Put your phone down. Open your book. Speak. Listen. Live. I am Alex. This has been your English journey. Stay focused, my friends. Goodbye.